The three matzah also remind us of Abraham visited by the angels as he called to Sarah, "Hurry, 3 measures of the finest flour needed," and what's the next one?
Makukot, so round bread. And who knew that when she was calling at this particular time,
She made the apple
that it was
cake.
actually their Seder?
Okay. The Midrash says the meal takes place on Pesach, and the ugos and our matzah are made in a hurry, so they did not become chametz.
Okay, thanks.
Say that. I just missed
Me
that.
either. I thought that was an interesting
Yeah.
midrash. There's lots of midrashim, right? And you know, over time we kind of like remember and pick them up in our toolkit to sort of think about. And here we learned that when Sarah is off to go get for the 3 angels that come, what is she doing? She's actually getting ready to make the Passover Seder.
Well, you know, anybody can write midrash.
Of course we can.
And it's even easier if you have a rabbi or some title attached to your name,
I suppose.
because you can pull into it whatever you want to make your story.
Monica, grab a stool. Okay.
Okay, so on the draft.
Drash, the expanded reason for 3 matzos. The 3 matzos represent the 3 patriarchs, Abraham, Yitzhak, Isaac, and Yaakov. Rokiach.
I didn't know that.
They also represent the 3 categories of Jews, Kohen, Levi, Yisrael. When we are preparing for the Seder, we stack the matzos in this order. First, the matzah representing Yisrael on the bottom. I have to take a sip. Okay, let's see. Then Levi above it, and finally the Kohen on top. In this order, their acronym is Ye-Lecha, meaning going or journeying.
Okay, so you catch that. So we have, and this comes from the Arizal. So Yisrael, Levi, and then the Kohanim. So it represents this acronym.
The Seder is a process, a journey towards liberation. Sod, the mystical reason for 3 matzos. Our sages tell us that a child does not know how to call father or mother until he tastes grain. This implies that the consumption of wheat is associated with our intellectual development. There is Rabbi Yitzhak Luria says that the 3 matzos symbolize the 3 forms of intellect, chokmah or wisdom, bina or understanding, and da'at or awareness. The matzah on the bottom of the stack is the one that is combined with maror to make Hillel sandwich. This matzah specifically embodies da'at, a sephira that brings together opposites. Hillel sandwich brings together the intellect, matzah, and the emotions. Maror brings together redemption, matzah, and slavery, maror. The middle matzah is broken into 2 pieces. This expression of bina, whose function is breaking ideas into fine details, the left brain. The larger of the 2 pieces is broken into 5 smaller pieces before it is hidden away as the afikomen. These 5 pieces represent the 5 levels of Gevurah, constriction, another left column Sephira, which is just below Bina on the tree of life. In terms of the Sephirot, Bina is represented in the letter He, the 5th letter, and a letter that is comprised of 2 parts. A right vertical line connected to a horizontal line above and a left suspended line to the left. Thus the middle matzah is broken into 2 and then further into 5. The top matzah is consumed together with the remaining piece of the middle matzah in fulfillment of the eating mitzvah of eating matzah. Fulfilling a mitzvah is a manifestation of chokmah, a higher intuition or faith in what is above and beyond us. Being that the top matzah is connected with the letter Yud, a simple 1 point, the matzah is not broken.
Somebody want to pick up there?
In general, the numerical value of the word matzah is 135, which is the same as the combined values of the divine names of 72 and Sod 63. Av is associated with the Sephira of Chakra, and Sod is associated with the Sephira of Bina.
Keep going, yeah, whatever.
3 and 4. Now we have an understanding of why we use 3 matzos. Another question arises. Why should there be 3 matzahs when the main numerical theme of the Haggadah is 4? What is the inner reason for 3 matzahs but 4 cups of wine, and how can this inspire our Seder? Plus
What
the
other-
4
what-
questions.
4 questions, and what other 4?
For the kids.
4 children, exactly.
Perhaps.
Our sages tell us, Shabbos 104a, that the letters Gimel and Dalet mean Gomel Dalim. The letter Gimel in Hebrew, the number 3 means Gomel, giver, and the letter Dalit, the number 4, means Dalim, poor people, i.e. recipients of the giver. Thus, the relationship between 3 and 4 is one of giving and receiving. This relationship can be understood through the following analogy.
Diane, could you show mine?
One person.
Oh, I'm sorry. I wasn't even.
One person, the giver, is considering how to communicate a subtle spiritual insight to another person, the receiver. Before communication occurs, the insight has 3 metaphorical dimensions within the mind of the giver: omek or depth, orech or length, and rochev or breadth. Depth refers to the giver's understanding of deeper meaning of the insight. Length refers to the giver's ability to articulate the insight, taking it out of abstraction and giving it an understandable form. Broadening means the giver's ability to develop practical implications of the insight. So all 3 are just the giver alone.
And you knew.
The receiver is poor in terms of these 3 dimensions. However, when the giver finally communicates the insight, a 4th dimension is added to 3, relationship with the receiver. Thus, when 3 is received, it becomes 4. The giver's insight now expands vertically and horizontally within the vessel of the receiver's mind. And there is a unity between giver and receiver. Oh, how lovely.
Our redemption. In terms of our exodus from Egypt, Hashem is the giver and we, the redeemed ones, are the receivers. Eventually we reach a unity with Hashem, but first the relationship must be developed. In the beginning, as slaves, we are dependent, immature, and unable to receive. During the journey of redemption, we become ready to have a genuine relationship with our Redeemer. We drink 4 cups of wine to represent the 4 expressions of the Torah uses in reference of the Exodus.
Here's another 4.
I will take you out, I will save you, I will redeem you, I will take you to me.
Okay, so those come from Torah, which are actually connected to the 4 cups of wine.
The first 3 expressions are like the 3 dimensions of insight within the giver, and they imply poverty on the part of the receiver, for there is not yet an active receptivity or relationship. The 4th term, take you to me, implies a genuine relationship, a unity between the giver and the receiver. That is when communication finally occurs. In the expression, I will take you to me, the term take, lekiha, alludes to the taking of a marriage partner. Hashem takes us to himself in marriage when we reach Mount Sinai. Prior to this, we're still eating the bread of poverty, working on our freedom and opening ourselves. During the divine wedding canopy, we sip the wine of Hashem's Torah, and we receive the full depth, length, and breadth of his insight. In Hashem's embrace, we transcend intellect and we are fully redeemed.
Okay, in summary, the 3 matzot, as the bread of poverty, are flat, relatively tasteless, cardboard-like, imagine, representing the receiver in an empty, passive, open state. Therefore, the first 3 expressions of redemption in which the receiver is passive correspond to the 3 matzot. They correspond to the 3 levels of intellect, chokhmah, bina, da'at, which also are the letters for Chabad, before they are touched and ignited by divine love. Wine, in contrast to matzah, is full of taste, color, and passion, representing the receiver engaged in a loving relationship. The 4 cups of wine represent the 4th expression of redemption, when we, the receivers, are mature enough to enter into an intimate communication with God. When our 3 intellectual sephirot are then ignited, we transcend intellect. We unite 3 and 4. This is the end goal of our redemption, and these are the energies we activate at the Seder when we eat the 3 matzot and drink the 4 cups of wine. With blessings for redemptive Pesach, Rav Dov Ber Pinson, and this came from our social media. He's on, and he's really very, interesting, obviously well-read, thorough, communicates nicely
And he's
his
young.
concepts. Young man who is
In his
New York,
30s, 40s.
and he's basically the driving force behind Iyun Yeshiva. So you can find him on Facebook if you're so inclined.
He does a lot of reaching.
And as you know, he's basing it on.
It's not bad. I mean, some of the things a lot of stuff you really got to reach for. You know, you can tell he's in a much different spiritual plane than the average person.
Well, and as the head of Iyun Yeshiva, perhaps that makes a lot of sense.
So do you have this on your Word file? And you can email it to me?
It's actually on our Facebook site.
This is?
Yeah, and if you look him up on Facebook, you'll find that and a number of wonderful drashas that you can listen to, 10 minutes long, 30 minutes
I
long.
wasn't sure if you compiled it, like condensed it.
No, it actually, well, more or less came just like you see it. Okay, and at the request of Alan, we're going to deal with this next piece, eating Kitnyot, and you can look what year are we actually in Hebrew, 5772. So how long ago was this written?
33 years.
Yeah, wouldn't
Okay, a
have been,
while.
wouldn't have been 5,000 years ago. It would
No,
You
33.
saying?
You can see at the bottom of our eating Kitnyot page what year it was
Oh,
written
57.
by Rabbi David Golinkin.
Now we
And
say-
Golinkin actually has been here, is it more than once? How many times has he been here, Judy?
Golinkin had been here once when I didn't see him, like maybe 5 years ago.
So he's been here a couple of times?
And since then he came to the temple.
Very interesting.
He is. Okay, so we've got eating Kitnyot, legumes on Pesach.
Now,
This
wouldn't that
is a
include
responsa.
rice? Doesn't that include all kitniot?
A legume
Yes.
is a grain.
Pardon?
It's
Is
beans.
Yeah, but rice is not a legume.
That is true.
Right.
So maybe we should define Kitnyot, right? So this is what we're doing here. The responsa on Kitnyot, what's a responsa?
It's a rabbinical response to a
A
ruling.
question, basically law, right? Okay, so, or a halachic guidance with regard from the conservative movement. Okay, so.
But it's not only, a response was the standard way of communicating with communities for thousands of years.
Yes, and so whether we call it responsa or tshuva, often it was a question that was asked, and then there was a tshuva that was written, or a response in this particular case. These are under the auspices website of the conservative movement. So tshuva were ways that communities that were in far-reaching areas who didn't have social media to ask these questions and get an immediate response were able to, over the centuries, ask certain rabbis, what about this question? What should our community do? So Rabbi Golinkin, and you can see it was unanimously approved. Okay, so what are kitnyot?
They're supplemental grains additional to the traditional.
Okay, so what are the categories of, we've got our regular things that we're not allowed to have during Pesach. Wheat, barley, what else?
Right.
Spelt.
Oats.
No, it's spelt, you can eat because there's spelt matzah for kosher for Pesach.
We can only eat it in terms of matzah, right? So.
No, I thought rice was a
Sorry.
kitniot.
She
We got-
Right.
No, I don't understand why oats are included when that was a later addition. We touched on that last week.
We did touch on it last week, and basically some of these
They
were
didn't
not part of
exist
ancient Israel, but this is the list that has been developed over the things that become chametz. So we usually eat wheat, but most people eat wheat matzah. So there is certainly spelt matzah. I've seen oat matzah before. I don't know about barley and rye, but probably somebody has made it. So matzah just means that it
Like whole wheat matzah.
whole wheat
So,
matzah. Most
what
matzah is
is
just
it?
plain wheat, right, as opposed to whole wheat. But yes, there's whole wheat. There's whole wheat with bran.
Yes.
There's egg matzah, which is technically under some not supposed to be used for the Seder unless someone's sick, ill, pregnant, or otherwise.
So is
Okay,
kidney yolk then the approved list?
kitnyot are
It's a
actually,
secondary.
they're another grouping So legumes in general, so this, in the 1700s, when you got a bag of whatever it was, wheat, there may be other things added to it because they weren't as careful like our bins that we have now in the grocery store. So some other things may have fallen into like the lentil bin or the rice bin.
Well, you also have a different problem.
Corn. Corn is included in that. Legumes are beans though, aren't they?
True.
Because you can have, depending on the growing season, just because you could have two different items here, and even though they're separated, that means the one item still could get over into
Sure, exactly.
in the plant. So when it's
Exactly.
harvested,
So when the harvest was done, maybe some, in the rice, maybe some spelt got in it. So these are, the technical term is little things, or kitnyot, small things. So legumes, beans, lentils, rice, whatever, corn, that's the category that we're talking about now. So the category that we're discussing.
I'm just trying to find out though, is this approved? Is this the approved list? Or is this the allowable?
It's Ashkenazic. So if it's Sephardic, they wouldn't recognize it, so
But is it allowed on Passover?
So
That's
the
not the
answer to that question
is what we're gonna
depends
explore.
upon whether you are Ashkenazic
Mhm.
and Orthodox, or whether you're Sephardic.
But now this responsa is from Ashkenazic, isn't it?
Yes.
But
Yes.
this is designed to be directed towards the people who are eating kitnyot.
Right.
But it's for everybody who's in
Oh.
the conservative movement.
But in Israel, Galinkin lives in Israel, he functions not in American conservative movement, but in Israeli Masorti.
Yeah, but Kitnyot isn't just an American.
Yeah, but the point is in Israel, the mixture of a Sephardic and Ashkenazi Jews is such that it becomes hard in the family because when they intermarry,
They mix.
they intermarry a lot.
Oh.
It's pretty standard. And when you get in the families, some people try to figure out how to compromise. And from what I know, the rabbis like for many years now talking about how to unify this thing in Israel because it's very practical. Here it's maybe far-fetched thing. Usually most of the Jews here are Ashkenazic and everybody.
Depending upon where one is, because
Right.
certainly there's some communities that have Sephardic temples or whatever.
I think he's going much further beyond what you just said, justifying the kitnyot for people who are already in the practice of eating kitnyot. I think what he's saying in this responsum is, wow, we've been foolish for like hundreds of years to like worry about lentil during Passover.
So this is what we call a minhag shtut, or a foolish minhag. Let's read about it. So the question is, in light of the ingathering of exiles, would it be possible to eliminate the Ashkenazic custom of not eating legumes or kitnyot, which is the real technical terminology for it, which includes all of that, on Pesach? So Alan, you want to pick up the response in there?
One, in our opinion, it is permitted, and perhaps even obligatory to eliminate this custom. Is in direct contradiction to an explicit decision in the Babylonian Talmud, cited in Pesachim 114, and is also in contradiction to the opinion of all the sages of the Mishnah and Talmud except one, Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, according to Pesachim 35a and parallels. It also contradicts the theory and the practice of the Amoraim, both in Babylonia and in Israel, according to Pesachim 114, and Geonim.
From all of these various sources?
Citations and of most of the early medieval authorities in all countries, altogether more than 50 Rishonim.
Okay, so what is he first basing his opinion on?
The number of scholars who says
You can abandon it.
Talmud, scholars, our sages, various sources. So this, please know, is based upon Talmud. Okay, so paragraph 2, Karen, you pick up?
This custom is mentioned for the first time in France and Provence in the beginning of the 13th century by R. Asher of Lunel
And Rabbi,
and Rabbi Samuel of Fillet and Rabbi Peretz of Corbeil. From there, it spread to various countries, and the list of prohibited foods continued to expand. Nevertheless, the reason for the custom was unknown, and as a result, many sages invented at least 11 different explanations for the custom. As a result, Rabbi Samuel of Fillet, one of the first to mention it, referred to it as a mistaken custom, and Rabbi Yerucham called it a foolish custom.
Okay, minhag shtut, all right,
And the
so.
way I understand the real denotation of fool is that you're taking an action knowing there's what the consequence is. So there.
Perhaps,
there's-
I mean, basically, they're really sort of not just poking a small hole in it, but a huge hole,
Mhm.
okay, in terms of this practice. Anyone pick up the read?
Therefore, the main halakhic question in this case is whether it is permissible to do away with the mistaken or foolish custom. Many rabbinic authorities have ruled that it is permitted and perhaps even obligatory to do away with this type of foolish custom. Rabbi Abban in Yerushalmi, Pesachim, Maimonides, the Rosh, the Rabash, and many others. Furthermore, there are many good reasons to do away with this foolish custom. A, it detracts from the joy of the holiday by limiting the number of permitted foods. B, it causes exorbitant price rises, which results in a major financial loss, and as well known, the Torah takes pity on the people of Israel's money. It emphasizes the insignificant legumes and ignores the significant chametz, which is forbidden from the 5 kinds of grain. D, it causes people to scoff at the commandments in general and at the prohibition of chametz in particular. If this custom has no purpose and is observed, then there is no reason to observe other commandments. E, finally, it causes unnecessary divisions between Israel's different ethnic groups. On the other hand, there is only one reason to observe this custom: to desire to preserve an old custom. Obviously, this desire does not override all that was mentioned above. Therefore, both Ashkenazim and Sephardim are permitted to eat legumes and rice on Pesach without fear of transgressing any prohibition.
Okay, so really, this is darn clear cut.
We liked it.
There's like not even a question here, right?
Permitted is the
Permitted
word.
is permitted is permitted, and not only permitted, as he said at the very beginning, in our opinion, it is permitted and perhaps even obligatory. So in other words, even one really needs to stop this stuff. So he's not just saying it's a good idea. He's not just saying
We're
it's allowed.
We're obligated.
Obligated. Okay, that's pretty heavy-handed, isn't it?
Well,
But interesting that he puts number 5. The last one is divisions between Israel's different ethnic groups, which from what I know about him, what I read from, for him, this is the main reason, really. Because he doesn't want division between nations.
Well,
But a different one.
It sounds like he was also dividing the ones who can afford it and the ones who can't. He said, that the prices go up.
Well,
We know that. The bakeries
Yeah.
overcharge on Pesach. Well, they did where I grew up, so.
The one that resonates with me really is D, because in my past lives, as I would go through the pantry and just throw everything out, and, examining things. I mean, things that didn't have like
High fructose corn
wheat in it,
syrup.
right?
Right, exactly.
I know, I looked at.
Although, quite frankly, from a health standpoint, we can
Not good.
argue about that,
Right,
right?
Not good for you,
But
yes.
it was clearing it out for Passover though. Oh my God.
So then I thought, as I progress and I'm trying to figure out, how do I really want to be observant and so on, and what rationalities do I make and all this stuff. I find that my observance of Pesach was sort of in jeopardy because I was really hung up over this, like, what do I have in my house? I was hung up with this one thing. And that's what he's saying in E here, or in D, that, as soon as you question the commandment, well, then you start to sort of chisel away at the foundation of observing Pesach.
Yeah, right. So it's sort of like taking this thing that's kind of like a side note and lifting it up above the issue about chametz. And chametz, as we know, and we've talked about in our group, is our metaphor for ego. And when the sages say get rid of it, they say not only get rid of it, burn it, completely nullify it. What about all this Kitnyot stuff? So we're getting rid of this stuff too. But yet we can be a little lax sometimes depending upon what are the leniencies, right? This is being very clear cut and saying legumes, rice, permitted. Just like get over it already. Okay.
Although before it was permitted, and using
Right.
your connotation
Sure.
of ego, it's like deal with it. You
You know,
like,
so
okay.
like quinoa,
There's actually
all those other
another
kinds of
difference-
grains
There's another
are not
different
even-
response on that, which I didn't bring.
I need
But
to know. I have
specifically,
to-
it's not on, it would be under Kitnyot. It's not a problem.
I can leave the quinoa in the house.
Quinoa's
Okay.
in the house. So.
because there's a bunch of other alternative type of grains. You know, you have your
Amaranth.
Exactly,
and
so.
buckwheat
and I mean that's what I
and-
have, and that's what it's in my refrigerator. And so do I get rid of them? It's not the 5.
No, you eat it all before Friday.
No, this is indicating that I don't have to do that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That I can keep those and I don't have to worry about it. I just got,
It-
one
it-
bag of flour that needs to go. That's the only thing in the house.
Often remember, we discuss sometimes Orthodox halachot and move through that mindset. Here we're specifically dealing with conservative halakha. So it depends upon your practice. Because Temple Beth Or is just Jewish, we bring in and examine all sorts of things, right? Sometimes-
Methodist.
Instead of looking at,
We have some new.
just Orthodox halakha on this, I appreciate Alan, saying, hey, we really need to pay attention to that. Because really, I think examining this is a helpful piece. So
It is a
thank
helpful
you.
piece.
Thank you.
Well, and Alan was saying, we're chiseling away stuff. The more we dilute it, it sounds like, we can't keep diluting stuff. We have to still know that it's in
But
the
al-
Torah and not diluting it and chiseling it away.
I think part of what Alan's getting at is that people will just throw up their hands and say, "Out of heck with it. It's too
Yeah,
much.
too
It's
much."
too strict."
And he brings a very, it's an excellent point in there.
Forget
The problem-
about it.
The problem I had with Passover is you can't have the stuff, you gotta get rid of it. And then some people say, no, you can't get rid of it, you gotta
Sell
to sell it. Well, I would rather have poor people take it.
You-
I can
you're-
re-
No,
I
you don't
can-
have
I
to
can
sell it.
replace
You
There's
just have
not
to-
a requirement.
Yeah.
Basically, here's the deal. So in fact,
The
I
real
still have
deal.
forms because I had to develop them or get them this year for the Jewish community in Elko, right? Because there is part of their practice where they actually do sell their chametz and they need somebody to affect that transaction for them. So it's a choice on how you deal with things, right? I mean, Passover is always the push-pull. How much do you get rid of? What are you giving to people? Can you take some and do you choose to burn it? I know that Emmanuel in the past has had like an 11 o'clock or 12 o'clock time period where they burn on, say, Friday. I don't know
So
if guys
you
did
bring
that this
everything
year.
and have a bonfire and you toss your.
They've done it in the
First-
past,
first
so I
of
don't
all,
know.
They get
The
burned
sale goes the first thing,
The
there
people
were these
bring
forms on the
in,
computer that I never participated in, but there was a form that people took whoever wanted. Very few people actually do it in Sinai or in, I don't see practical differences in observance between Sinai and Emmanuel at homes, I'm talking, not about within the temple. Okay, so people in both places just get these forms for sale if they want to, whoever wants.
but they have to bring it to the
And
shul, don't
They,
they?
no,
No, they bring the
No.
form to the show.
They bring the
The
form to
food,
the
the
show.
food stays
They
like
put
in a
the
box
food
in your,
in a box
somewhere
in
in
the
secret.
garage.
And then they buy it back.
Typically, the rabbi does that. So rabbi usually creates the transaction,
But
and it also includes animals, because you think about all the chametz that's like being fed for dog food or whatever else it is. Okay, so, but at any rate, are you burning this year or no?
No, the burning happens at the very end, from what I understand. I have never witnessed it, but when you, just before you close everything up and say kosher Pesach, you go and sweep corners of the cupboards and whatever, and usually when little kids in the household, the kids like to find something, okay? And if they find a few crumbs there, they'll bring, I don't know, a plate maybe, and that's what is being burned.
It's an old
It's like a game. It's like a game.
Yeah.
So you
It's
explain
it's an old
Then
custom.
don't they
to
get a
teach the
reward
children.
for it? Don't they get something for finding
The,
it?
the way I understood it is that it was purposely left in the corner, and the father was teaching the children that they have to look for the chametz everywhere in the house.
So it was like a
they-
game?
They have like a little broom and a
A
scoop.
little feather and a candle,
Yeah,
and it's
and
done
you
like
bring
this
it- and then
year,
you put it
first
in.
night.
So you
So that's probably maybe different than people actually bringing, they may bring whatever it is they need to and burning. So
So
slightly, just two different pieces
in
there.
my last conservative synagogue in Saratoga, my last actually, we always had a food bank barrel in the lobby, and it was really filled on
Filled up,
Passover,
yeah.
because it was really the habit of people, the
That's a good
Shabbat
idea.
before Passover,
And
to
the
come and
huge-
just
That's a
bring
good idea.
unopened stuff and give it to food banks. So it was kind of ironic because, you know, we're supposed to be chametz free, but if you went into the synagogue, in the entry of the synagogue,
Yeah.
there's this overflowing bin.
Yeah. And the argument there
So take a
is
little
because
arrow
it
and put
is
somewhere.
Sorry.
donated,
Given away.
it's given away,
Yeah.
it's no
Gone.
longer yours, right? So if you've given it away, if you have done whatever it is you're doing, it's no longer yours, so, right. Okay, all right,
Yes.
let's do, paragraph 4 and then if there's more questions.
Undoubtedly, there will be Ashkenazim who will want to stick to the custom of their ancestors, even though they know that it is permitted to eat legumes on Pesach. To them, we recommend that they observe only the original custom of not eating rice and legumes, but that they use oil from legumes and all other foods forbidden over the years, such as peas, beans, garlic, mustard, sunflower seeds, peanuts, etc. Thus, they will be able to eat hundreds of products and will bear the label kosher for Pesach for those who eat legumes. This will make their lives easier and will add joy and pleasure to their observance of Pesach.
Okay, all right, so where does this come from to begin with? Let's look at the very first, in the parentheses at the top, what is that reference to?
State Ohio law.
Nice.
What is OH?
OH?
It's a statute. She's a lawyer, she'll figure it out.
It's Orchaim,
Oh, no, Orchaim, okay.
from the Shulchan Aruch.
All right.
Oh, what would life be like
Oh,
without
so
life
these-
medicine cutting up artichokes?
So Orchaim, this is the responsa based upon what is found specifically in Orchaim.
Okay, and in Orchaim, the Kitnyot are not forbidden.
And I wouldn't say that because I haven't looked specifically at Shulchan Aruch, but that's where that one finds it. So
Okay.
looking back at Orchaim, and then here is how they are revising it. So it's addressed to whatever one finds in Orchaim. So as long as you know where the at least source is from Shulchan Aruch, it's a helpful case. So, but they're basing it on what? Talmud, Mishnah, the number of really sages who have made a comment about how it's minhag shut, including Maimonides, the Rosh, etc. And saying that it will add to the joy of the holiday. So that's kind of the.
So it's true. So this year I observed following this ruling, and I did my thing, yesterday, going to the pantry and finding everything. And so I have 2 very, very small boxes of chametz that we've taken out of the house, and the rest of the bread stuff that we're going to eat over the next 2 days are like in a little, very small pile on the counter, and that's it. So it was a very, it was not so arduous
This year.
this
I
year.
use a vacuum, by the way.
Yeah.
No,
No fat.
I vacuum the cabinets.
What about the dust that escapes and just sprays it every place?
I use one with a bat.
Well, that's why we've
I'm
been
not
talking
backless.
about what happens with what a mouse drags in, right? In fact, I was reading in terms of Orthodox halachot, how in Israel, because there will be people who do not observe Pesach during Pesach and take sandwiches to the Kinneret, that they will not drink water that comes from the Kinneret during that period of time. So that they will buy water in advance, because you can do bitul b'shishit in advance, so there's no problem with, okay, maybe there was comments in something, but during Passover, no amount is allowed. So it's a question of when do you buy your milk, when do you buy your water, so some people who are very observant are going to do that in advance.
Would you look for the hechsher on it to have the P?
I don't know.
For the most part, you're not gonna find a P for Passover in a hechshered item. But knowing from a halachic standpoint that it has been purchased prior to Pesach, and you have created the situation of bitul in the house, so there is no comments left. If it came in the water, somehow got in the water, it is bitul. If you bought it during Passover, you may arguably be bringing in, that would be an argument, that maybe there was a sandwich.
So during your
Right,
cleaning,
okay, so see how far we can go.
during
as a
during your
conservative,
cleaning
right?
during your cleaning
Contaminated.
process, you've actually cleared it.
Correct, and you purchased
To the
in
best of your
advance,
knowledge.
not
Even
during
if you
Passover,
haven't
right?
opened it or anything
But
else,
you
because
purchased, it is
everything
yours.
else.
It is yours, once you purchase it, you have it in your house, it's yours.
Okay.
So Diane, this corrects maybe a possible misunderstanding you had. When you said you're going to wait to Thursday to buy all your kosher Passover food, but you shouldn't. You should actually buy it as soon as they put it out at Safeway, because then maybe Safeway will get the idea and order more next year, so more people can be, can follow the observation.
And if you wait till last minute, it won't be
It's
there.
good,
And if you wait
that's
till
one
last minute
argument.
and it's not there, then there's actually products that you can't buy during Passover.
Right, so if I get it now and then I clean during the week, which I haven't done
Well,
yet,
you just partition off.
then
You say
everything
this
is gonna be okay.
Well, you just partition off. You say this temporarily, this counter is just my kosher Passover counter.
Exactly.
Nothing else is on it, and I won't touch it.
Right.
And then you'll clean all around it, and everything will be fine.
And some people actually tape their cabinets, the ones that aren't supposed to be open.
Yeah, so
They
that's,
just
all
tape
all
it.
of
Do
those,
not
all
open
of
this
those choices
cabinet.
exist, and really, I mean, if you wanna get
I think the
seriously,
spring
because
cleaning's kind of,
it's, there are some
nice
people who
idea.
literally have kitchens just for Passover, that's one choice.
well, now if you can afford to do that, that'd be
Or
lovely, but.
dishes, or dishes.
And
Usually
definitely
people
dishes
have
is
it
another
to
option, and which is why actually we have Passover, or not Passover, there's cake available today, but it won't be here next week.
And it's very tasty.
So you're welcome to have some, there's apple spice cake.
I had
But
some.
The reason you
better finish up cooking today,
the reason
right?
you would tape up a cabinet. Let's say that you're a baker. You like to bake on the weekends. So bake whenever you bake. So you have a cabinet which is just your baking trays and pans and all that stuff. And there could arguably be a lot of chametz in that
Oh, yeah.
stuff because it's very difficult to clean out a bundt pan.
A toaster.
Yeah, a
Where the
toaster.
toaster's located.
So one thing you
Yeah.
can do is you can put all the baking stuff away and say, well, during Passover you don't bake. That's a given. And you just kind of tape it up and say, it's not even mine anymore. It's all behind this seal.
It's a good thing they didn't make the toaster open, we're gonna have to hold a sheet of matzah.
Yeah.
I can't remember the last time I
But-
owned a
Just care to
toaster.
crack
But
them
you
off.
I
also
just
have
use the
to-
oven to toast because I rarely ever have toast.
But you also have to remember that when you put your stuff away for clear off like part of the pantry, that you don't put your chametz up, it's gotta go down, because it could fall.
That's true.
That's a good
So-
thought.
That's the way I
So
clean my
you
cabinets.
You wanna put your
Yeah.
chametz down.
I clean my cabinets
And
from
put
up to down, because I
everything
think
else
I'm
up.
pushing the stuff
I
down.
agree. I make a local ruling in my house that we actually take the chametz out of the kitchen completely. So Gail puts it in boxes and we move it into the
Mhm.
laundry room, the corner laundry room
Oh,
for the week.
Yeah.
And some
Yeah,
people,
mine
use the garage, some people, clear it out, so everybody has their own practice on how they get ready, but really seriously, we think about it, what's really underlying all of these practices? I mean, at some level, it's like going through the Seder, when we do it like kind of unconsciously, oh, it was a nice meal, but what else about it?
It's the
What else about it?
remembrance. It's the remembrance.
And what else?
Of
And what
history.
else? I mean, there's so many, it's like a
Layers.
tapestry. So each year we learn a little bit more. So each year we ask another really good question. Because isn't that part of our tradition? I mean, we learn more nuances. And sometimes this halakhic frittering is really kind of fun. This peel pull is interesting because we learn more. So we can ask a good question. Go, who was that Sarah? Or who was Shifra and who? What did they do? How do we learn about civil disobedience? All of these pieces, right? So, at any rate.
But if you soak your matzah and get it wet, before it starts flying apart, and you fold it up, just, a little flat spot here and curve the edges, and it's great for tacos.
that sounds elaborate.
If you wanna
With,
try.
with,
Actually, this is very easy to start
with garbanzo
I
beans.
like
Really?
soak them for a second and then you can put.
So it just softens it just enough to fold it?
Yeah.
You gotta go with grain, you have to go with the
No pun
preparation,
intended.
Yeah. But
Go with
there are
the
a lot
correct
of
grain.
Mizrahi recipes. I have a book from a while back from the Sephardic side, whatever, and there a lot of stuff things that the kids like it's almost as good as pizza and almost and particularly if you allow Kitnyot, then your life is really easy. You really can enjoy the food because you cook something that you usually don't cook. So it's kind of variety, like going vacation from your regular stuff, and it's and it becomes much more pleasant than just eating dry matzah.
Even if it's covered with chocolate.
And it's a mitzvah to
Those
eat the
are
matzah during the
amazing.
8 days, so it's not just like you don't eat carbohydrates, so the
Even-
matzah is no big
Depending
deal.
upon your minhag. For some people, it's a mitzvah. For some people, they only eat for 2 seders and no more. For some people, they don't soak because it's called gebrocks. So everyone has their own method of getting there, wherever their there is.
Mine is have an equal amount of antidote.
Which
Okay.
Well, fruits, but you know, so
Yeah,
if you eat a
Right,
pound of
because of
matzah,
the,
you-
yeah, because it's
I see.
binding.
I
It's
thought
very
that,
Got
binding.
it.
I thought
Right.
that's why everybody went to the Chinese restaurant right after the last Seder.
Might have to take
It's
it raw.
pizza
It's
usually.
pizza.
Off to the pizza restaurant. And we did, you know what, we probably need to connect you to because we talked about matzah
We've
bride.
already spoken
Okay.
and It's turning-
on a date.
what,
It's about the date.
it's turning into way too much time for me on the phone so far.
Okay, so
I-
maybe you two could talk
Yeah.
about maybe matzah bride for 8th
It
day,
may
after the 8th day, however it
It's
goes.
gonna be the
Right.
second week in May, I think, third week in May.
That's right, we cannot find one.
We
day
can't find the day
that-
at Sinai because it seems that Marsh Cohn's husband's on the board of some type of orchestra chamber
Right,
and
right.
The
so
chamber
there, yeah, so
orchestra.
there's,
So is Marcia.
yes, well, so are some, a lot of these Sinai members, so we're gonna have to just collect as much as we can, the Passover matzah, see who wants to donate it, and then maybe the week after Mother's Day, we'll try to do it.
Okay, so let's move on to our tractate
But
of
she likes the
Pesachim.
idea.
What page are we on? Around 150-ish?
You tell us, and we'll figure it out. 150-ish?
Yep,
I have 150 and 151, I don't have a 150-ish.
okay.
Okay, where do we end up?
We did women's cosmetics, right?
Yes.
151?
your book.
Okay,
Share with
so
Alan.
Share.
how about if we go to in sum?
Oh, in some, you transgress by keeping anything.
Karen, you need
Made
to
of
back up so you're not in
grain. It was taught, Rabbi Joshua said, seeing that the Mishnah gives the rule, you trying to keep anything, oh, wait a minute, hang on.
Gives you the general rule that
Thank
you,
you. Transgress by keeping anything made of grain. Now, why did the sages list these specific items? It was so that people should be familiar with them and their names. And see, this is like what happened to a Westerner.
somebody from Israel who came to Babylon.
He had some meat with him, and somewhere I have another page here. There it is.
And he asked,
It's the ish page.
Pass me, yes, thank you. I didn't see that before. Pass me the food bowl, he heard them say. Pass him the
Kutach.
kut, thank you. As soon as he heard the word kuta, he desisted, since he knew that it was the Babylonian dip that contained milk, which he could not eat with his meat.
Okay, all right, so that's
Yes.
why they gave us that lovely list of everything from Egyptian zythos to dyer soup and butcher's dough and scribe's glue. So, somebody want to pick up there? Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
What determined the class structure among Jews in the societies where the Mishnah and the Babylonian Talmud came into being. That a God of the law, that a God of the law, like the opening of the final chapter of Kiddushin, assigns value to the holiness of good family. Here descend from Aaron the high priest, but the highest value to Torah learning, a point expressed more forcefully in the final Mishnah of Harayot. To what extent do the social structures assumed by the Talmud correspond to the reality of Jewish life at that time? The near-death vision of Yosef, the son of Rabbi Yosha ben Levi, in which he sees a reversed social order among all but the learned, points to a discrepancy between ideal and reality. What's that?
So there's going to be a little story that comes up, and it's going to tell us, he's seeing things completely differently from reality, except among the learned. So what we're going to learn in this next piece is really about priorities. What's more important than what?
At the time, at times there was tension amounting to hatred between the learned, the Talmid Chacham, and the ignorant, the Ha'aretz. Such hostility may well have arisen in reaction to the exclusiveness of the Haverim, who set themselves apart from the ignorant masses, Haverim being the learned Talmid Chacham,
Right.
by their meticulous tithing and ritual purity. It declines among the Amoraim.
Okay, so often within Judaism, there has been a difference between those who are, quote, learned and those who are not learned. And that's, unfortunately, one of our social class issues that perhaps even existed, obviously, in the days of Baal Shem Tov, which is what he railed against. What he absolutely said, this is a problem, it needs to stop. Because here these people are, they're very pure of heart, they're really working very hard, and they have a special connection to Hashem. So the Baal Shem Tov came to sort of, at least in 1700, strip some of that away. So at one point when Mishnah was being created, there was this class difference between those who were learned, the Chavers, or the Talmud Chachams, and the Am Ha'aretz, who were not as smart, who didn't meticulously tithe, and were not part of that social elite status. So we're going to learn a little bit more about that if we get to that, but here we're going to first talk about what is more important. Usually we know that when we're on our way to do a mitzvah, we don't need to stop and do another mitzvah, but the Mishnah is going to come and talk to us about what about this issue about chametz, right? So the Mishnah, if someone is on his way to slaughter his paschal offering, or the Passover lamb, or to circumcise his son, or to the betrothal feast in the home of his prospective father-in-law, and remembers he has chametz in his house, if he has time to return home, get rid of it, and still perform the mitzvah, he should do it. Return home, get rid of it. But if there isn't time to do both, he should not return home, but mentally annul or betul the chametz and proceed with his mitzvah. Okay?
Oh, maybe because the not
What's
so
more important?
educated had hard laboring jobs and they couldn't get home in time.
But boy, that's a different issue that we're going to pick up in a little bit. This one is merely looking at which is more important. What should we do first? Should we go to do this, slaughtering of the paschal lamb to circumcise a kid, or a betrothal feast? Oops, wait a second. There's a chametz in the house. What should I do? Okay. What they're telling us is, under those circumstances, annul it in your mind. Get rid of it. Okay. So now we've got another Mishnah. What about if he was on his way to rescue people from idolatry, a river, robbers, a fire, or collapsing building? He should not return home, but should mentally annul it and proceed with his mitzvah.
So it's like go ahead with the mitzvah.
Under this circumstance, these rate higher.
Yeah.
You've got a collapsing building, you've got a fire, go deal with that, forget the comments, right?
Well, there's an interesting
It's
point
common
there,
sense.
because if you're concentrating on the chametz, you're not concentrating on what you're supposed to be doing.
That all's
so
true.
it's taking everything, including your spirituality, your concentration on what you should be doing, your learning, whatever, you're taking away because you're worried about the lousy little bit of
And in
chametz.
the first situation, if somebody's going to circumcise a child or go to a betrothal feast, go take care of the chametz if you have time.
If you're close to home, you can
If you're
take
close
care of
to home,
it,
do
but
it.
if you're not close to home, clear your mind.
Right. So that's a different situation. If you still have time to do it, great. But under this, rescuing people from idolaters, or rescuing people from a river, or robbers, or a fire, or a collapsing building, forget anything
Take
else.
care of-
Deal with the situation at hand, right?
Right.
So this is an issue of priority. Okay,
So-
here we
so
got
this-
another scenario.
The moral of the story is, if the bris is scheduled and the whale comes and he looks worried, you send him away.
The what? The what comes?
The boil comes and he's worried. Right, okay. All right, if someone was on their way to establish a Shabbat residence for some optional purpose, he should go back and get rid of the chametz, okay, because that is less priority. The same applies if someone left Jerusalem and discovered he was still carrying sacred meat. If he passed the Mount of Olives, he could burn the meat wherever he is, but if he didn't, go back to Jerusalem, burn it in the city with wood from the altar fire. For what quantity is one obliged to return? Rabbi Meir says in both cases the size of an egg, right? Rabbi Judah says in both cases the size of an olive. The majority of sages say sacred meat and olive size, but chametz, the size of an egg.
Oh, yeah, you need a matrix here.
I don't understand, obliged to return.
So you have to go back and eat and
Yes,
burn the
they-
meat on the altar.
they
If you're
say
carrying sacred meat, it's a
Right,
problem. What are
yes.
you gonna do with it? If you've already passed the Mount of Olives, so you've already are well on your way, basically,
You gotta
Stop and
continue,
keep going, right?
continue to burn the meat and then,
Unless you have more than an olive size or an egg
Yeah, he may
size.
burn the meat wherever he
Then
is,
you gotta
right?
go back.
Right.
Oh, then you burn it where you are, okay.
Then you burn it where you are.
Okay.
Burn wherever you are.
Yeah.
But if not, return to Jerusalem and burn in the city with the wood from the altar fire.
Is this a little, what's the word?
anal.
No, it's not, no longer applicable, but
Well, but
Because we
while
don't
it is,
have
quote, no longer applicable, we still use these concepts that are drawn from Talmud. At their time, it was no longer applicable.
yeah, that's what I mean, even when they were at the top
Even
of
when
it-
they were writing it, it was no longer applicable. In our day, obviously, it's no longer applicable because there's no temple and, nobody's got sacred meat. We're not burning stuff on a fire at an altar in Jerusalem, right? But
They're using it to illustrate
the issues,
something about the
what's
chametz.
important, how
Yeah.
much is important?
Okay,
It has to be a quantity. There has to be a certain quantity, and it has to be on a priority scale. So, yeah, so as Karen said, maybe a matrix would be helpful.
Isn't
Yeah.
that the same thing that goes with the marijuana law? How much can you carry and still be legal?
Okay,
And how far can you carry it?
It's the same thing.
Because you're not allowed to transport it. You're allowed to.
at least not over
You're allowed-
state lines,
No,
unless
no,
you've
you're not
got
allowed
some
to.
kind of
That's
additional card.
That's what's happening
apparently
with California. You can
that's
grow
apparently
it,
what the
you
DEA,
can smoke it, you
Yeah,
can't
that's right.
transport it.
you heard this morning? They
No.
shut down the Oakland,
The dispensary,
yeah, dispensary. in
that,
Oakland.
it's just
It got a little
bizarre.
too big.
You know, Stephen Fry was working on that, excuse me, trying to get marijuana legalized in the state of Nevada. I think they just, well, my opinion is just legalize it, tax the hell out of it.
Well, and that's certainly one way to deal with those things, right? Okay, so we're at 1:00. We'll pick up on the Gemara next time. Thank you all for coming today. It was delightful as usual.